Hi all, I'm Raghav and this is my Unity Fundamentals Self-Round-1 Assignment 4, and today I'm going to discuss about the following three questions like if I want to set up the collision detection between two bodies, how would I do that? What is the difference between a trigger and a collider? And third would be if I'm not allowed to use colliders, triggers and anything, then how would I detect that the two bodies have passed through each other? So let's start with the first question. So if I want to set up the collision between two objects, then I could firstly add a collider to both of the objects. So there are various types of collider for each of the objects. For a box shape object, there is a box collider. A sphere object, there is a sphere collider. There is a mesh collider for terrain type objects. Okay, so depending on the object, I would set up the collider. So next is I would enable the rigid body. So if I want the objects to react to the physics forces, then I would attach a rigid body component to them. So rigid body allows the object to be affected by gravity and forces and collisions. Uh, if I want that the collision should happen between two objects, then I would then at least one of the objects must have a rigid body component. Now the third thing I would do is set up the collision detection mode. So there are various types of collision detection modes. So most famous ones are the continuous and discrete ones. So in continuous collision detection mode, it will check continuously, and in discrete it will check continuously the collision between two objects, and in discrete mode it will just measure the collision at discrete time frames. So discrete just misses the fast moving object sometimes, and continuous will stop the fast moving objects. So over here you can also see the setup for the uh, collision between two objects. So over here in sphere, I have attached a sphere collider and a rigid body because I want the sphere to interact with the gravity. And on the plane, I have attached a box collider over here, and I've set the collision detection mode to discrete. So discrete collision detection mode is by default, so it comes automatically. So when I just press play, the object will fall and the collision is detected. So next thing is, what's the difference between a collider and a trigger? So collider and a trigger, there are collider just add the physical shape to the object in the game world. So it is used for both collision detection and physical interactions. So a collider can be attached to a game object and interact with the other collider in Unity physics engine. So uh, a collider basically is used for collision detection between two objects. Like if just I press a play, then it will fall and it will just detect the collision. So the trigger, on the other hand, it allows with the object to pass through it. So there are various types of colliders like box collider, sphere collider, mesh collider, and any collider can be a trigger. If I just press is trigger checkbox over here. So any collider can be a trigger. So colliders can be used to detect the collision, and it can be used like as a if I want the player to move on a platform, then the player shouldn't pass through the platform. So it's an example of a collider. But if I want to pick up any objects, like I want to pick up a health, so I would want that player should pass through the hardship game object, and the health would automatically be added. So the best thing would be to use a trigger instead of a collider over that in that case. So when I press the play, so this is for the collision. Okay, so if I just change the in the plane, I just select the is trigger component in box collider, then it will allow it to pass through it, as you can see. Sorry. Yeah. So next question would be that if I'm not allowed to use the uh, if I'm not allowed to use the colliders, triggers, or anything like that, how would I detect the position that if two bodies have passed through each other? So the easiest way to solve this type of question is, then I would keep track the position of the two of the bodies. Then I would just periodically check the distance between those two bodies with the vector 2 or vector 3 distance, or I would just subtract the position of the two bodies, and I would just use magnitude dot squared magnitude to check the position. The third step would be that I would just if the direction of the if the direction of the two bodies becomes smaller than a certain amount of threshold, then or it becomes negative, then I would consider that the objects have passed through each other, and I would perform the necessary actions to those two objects. And that's all. Thank you.